The gym was the last place Serena expected her life to fall apart, and then, somehow, come back together. She had been going to Fitcore on Westfield Avenue every Tuesday and Thursday morning for 2 years. 6:30 a.m., before the afterwork crowd turned the place into a social event. She liked the quiet of it, the predictability. She would drop her bag on the bench near the water fountain, claim the treadmill by the window, and spend 40 minutes watching the sun come up over the parking lot while her legs did what they were supposed to do. It was her time. The only hour of the day that belonged entirely to her. So when she walked in on a Tuesday in early March and found someone on her treadmill, not just any treadmill, but the one by the window, the one she had been using since before that man had clearly ever set foot in this gym, she felt something sharp and unreasonable rise up in her chest. He was tall. Dark shirt, dark joggers, earbuds in, eyes straight ahead, completely unbothered, completely unaware that he was standing in the wrong place. Serena set her bag down and waited. He didn't look over. She waited another 10 seconds. Nothing. She stepped closer. "Excuse me." He pulled one earbud out, barely turning his head. "Is this one taken?" She gestured at the treadmill next to hers. His. The one she did not want. "No," he said, and put the earbud back in. She stood there for a moment, jaw tight. Then she walked to the next treadmill and got on it, and spent the entire 40 minutes stewing. The view was slightly different from this angle. A half-inch of concrete wall where she usually saw open sky. It was a stupid thing to be upset about. She knew that. She was upset anyway. She grabbed her bag on the way out and didn't look at him. He was there again on Thursday. Same treadmill, same dark shirt, same complete indifference to her existence. This time, Serena didn't wait. She tapped him on the arm before he could get both earbuds in. "Hey." She kept her voice even, polite even. "I've been using that machine for 2 years. I know how that sounds, but I come in at 6:30 specifically to use it, and I'd really appreciate it if you could use one of the others." He looked at her for a long moment. He had the kind of face that was hard to read, not unfriendly exactly, but careful, like he was choosing what to say. "There are 12 treadmills," he said. "I know, and yours is the one by the window." "Yes." He looked at the window, then back at her. "The view is a parking lot. I'm aware of that." Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, not quite mockery. Something in between that made her feel like she was being evaluated and found slightly ridiculous, which was probably accurate, but that wasn't the point. "I'll be done in 20 minutes, he said, and put the earbud back in. Serena got on the treadmill next to him. She ran faster than she usually did. Her knee hurt the whole way home. She told her mother about it 3 days later. Mostly because her mother called on Sunday mornings and asked probing questions until something honest slipped out. That was the dynamic they had. Serena's mother, Cheryl, had a gift for pulling thread until the whole sweater unraveled. "You got into an argument with a man at the gym," Cheryl said. "Over a treadmill." It wasn't an argument. It was a conversation about a treadmill, about basic courtesy and respecting other people's routines. There was a pause on the other end. Serena could hear her mother thinking. "Is he cute?" Cheryl asked. "Mom, I'm just asking. That is completely irrelevant." "Okay," Cheryl said in the voice that meant she had already made up her mind about something. Serena should have recognized that voice. She had grown up with that voice. It was the voice that preceded every decision Cheryl had ever made on Serena's behalf. The summer enrichment program Serena hadn't asked to attend. The dentist who turned out to be her mother's friend's cousin. The apartment viewing that somehow turned into a lease signing. Cheryl was a woman who moved quietly and then presented you with outcomes. But it was Sunday morning, and Serena had coffee in her hand and sun coming through the kitchen window, and she forgot to be suspicious. The call came 2 weeks later. "I want you to come to dinner on Friday," Cheryl said. "I'm making your grandmother's pot roast. I have plans Friday." "Cancel them." "Mom, Serena, I am making pot roast. You are coming to dinner. Bring the good bread from the place on Clement Street, not the grocery store bread." Serena came to dinner. She brought the bread. She walked into her mother's house on Ridgemont Drive and smelled pot roast and garlic, and something like an ambush. There was someone already at the table. He looked up at the same moment she walked in, the same careful face, the same expression she couldn't entirely decode. Serena stopped in the doorway. "You've got to be kidding me," she said. Her mother appeared from the kitchen with an oven mitt on one hand and an expression of absolute innocence. "Serena, this is Caleb's friend from the architectural firm, Dylan." "Dylan, this is my daughter Serena. I think you two are going to get along wonderfully." Serena looked at the man from the treadmill. Dylan looked at Serena. "We've met," he said. "Have you?" Cheryl said, in the voice of someone who already knew the answer. Dinner was excruciating in the particular way that only dinner with your mother can be. The food was excellent. The conversation was guided with surgical precision toward topics that would theoretically bond two people together. And Serena sat through all of it with the specific awareness that she was being managed. Dylan, to his credit, did not seem to be in on it. He was quiet in a way that felt genuine rather than strategic. He answered Cheryl's questions without performing. When Serena's mother asked him about his work, he was a structural engineer, apparently not an architect. Her mother had gotten that wrong. He talked about it the way people talk about things they actually care about. Load-bearing walls, soil composition, the particular challenge of building something in San Francisco that would still be standing in 100 years. "You think about that?" Serena asked, before she could stop herself. 100 years from now? He looked at her. It was the first thing she'd said directly to him since they sat down. "Every project," he said. "Whatever I build, someone's going to be inside it." A lot of someones over time. That matters. Serena didn't say anything. She cut a piece of pot roast and thought about parking lots and concrete walls, and the 12 inches of morning sky she'd been missing for 3 weeks because of this man. After dinner, Cheryl disappeared into the kitchen with the efficiency of someone creating an opportunity. Serena and Dylan stood in the living room with their coffee cups and the low hum of the refrigerator. "Your mother is very smooth," he said. "She's been doing this for years." Serena looked at her cup. "I apologize for the treadmill thing. I know I was. You weren't wrong," he said. "I knew it was your spot. I'd seen you use it every time I came in." She looked up. "Then why?" "Because I was curious what you'd do." He said it simply, like it was obvious. "You had this whole routine. Same time, same machine, same playlist probably. I wanted to see if you'd say something or just let it go." Serena stared at him. "That's an incredibly strange thing to do to a stranger." "Probably," he agreed. He almost smiled. "Not quite. For what it's worth, I was impressed that you actually said something. A lot of people wouldn't." She didn't know what to do with that. She turned it over in her head for the rest of the night, on the drive home, in the quiet of her apartment after she'd locked the door and put the kettle on. The way he'd said it. "I wanted to see what you'd do." She didn't know if she was annoyed or something else entirely. Cheryl called the next morning at 8. "Don't," Serena said. "I didn't say anything. You were about to. I was going to ask if you wanted the leftover pot roast." "Mom." Cheryl was quiet for a moment. Then, gently, "He asked about you after you left. Just he asked if you were okay driving home alone at night. That's all." Serena sat with her coffee and the morning light and didn't say anything for long enough that her mother added, "He's a good man, Serena. I wouldn't have invited him if he wasn't." "I know you wouldn't have," Serena said. That was true. Whatever her mother's methods, her judgment was sound. It always had been. She went to the gym on Tuesday. He was there, on the treadmill by the window. She got on the one next to it. After a while, he pulled out one earbud. "Morning. Morning," she said. They ran in silence for 20 minutes. It was, she thought, surprisingly comfortable. It happened in increments after that, the way most things do when you aren't paying full attention. Coffee after the gym, first just once, then twice. Then every Tuesday without either of them saying it was going to be a thing, he took his black. She took hers with oat milk and 1 sugar, and he never commented on that, which she noted. She'd dated someone once who had feelings about oat milk. It had not ended well. He was from Atlanta originally, had come out to the Bay Area for graduate school and just stayed, the way people do. The city got into you somehow, the fog and the hills and the specific smell of the bay on cold mornings, and leaving felt like giving something up. Serena had grown up here. Daly City, then a series of apartments closer and closer to the water as her career moved forward. She worked in healthcare administration, not medicine, she always clarified, though the line got blurry sometimes. She managed the operational side of a mid-sized clinic in the Richmond district. Staffing, budgets, the 1,000 invisible decisions that kept things running. It wasn't glamorous. She found it deeply satisfying in a way she didn't always know how to explain. "Because things work," Dylan said one morning over coffee. "When you do your job well, things work, and when they don't, you fix them. That's satisfying." She looked at him. "Yes, exactly. Same reason I like what I do," he said. He was looking out the window. The coffee shop was on the corner of 2 busy streets, and the morning commute was starting, people moving past in both directions. "You build the thing right. It holds. You don't, it doesn't. The structure tells you the truth." Serena thought about that for days afterward. The structure tells you the truth. She turned it over in her head at odd moments, in the car, between meetings, lying awake at 2 in the morning when her brain wouldn't stop. She was starting to think she might be in trouble. The trouble arrived in full on a Wednesday evening in May. She had been working late, a staffing crisis, 2 nurses out with the same virus, the schedule a wreck, Everyone stretched. She left the clinic at 7:30, tired in the specific way that made her feel slightly transparent, and walked to her car in the parking garage and found a flat tire. She stood there for a moment and just looked at it. She called the roadside service. They said 45 minutes to an hour. She sat on the hood of the car in the concrete dim of the garage and scrolled through her phone and tried not to feel sorry for herself, and after about 10 minutes she called Dylan without entirely meaning to. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, hi." She hadn't planned what to say. "I have a flat tire and roadside is 45 minutes out, and I'm sitting in a parking garage and I don't know why I called you." A pause. "Which garage?" "The one on Geary. Behind the clinic." "I'll be there in 20 minutes. "You don't have to, Serena." His voice was calm. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. He was there in 18. He didn't change the tire himself. The roadside truck arrived not long after, but he stayed. He brought her a sandwich from the place next door, because she'd mentioned, 3 weeks ago, in passing, that she hadn't eaten lunch. She didn't remember mentioning it. He had apparently remembered. She ate the sandwich in the parking garage, while a man in a yellow vest changed her tire. And Dylan sat on the hood next to her, and talked about nothing in particular. The low, easy talk of someone who understood that the point wasn't the conversation. The point was just not being alone. On the drive home, she thought about what it meant that he'd come. She thought about it carefully, the way she thought about everything carefully, turning it over, checking the angles, and she decided she wasn't going to think about it anymore. She was just going to let it be what it was. She texted him when she got home. "I'm home. Thank you." He wrote back. "Good. Sleep." She did. June arrived, then July. Somewhere in the middle of it, they stopped pretending they were just friends who got coffee after the gym and started being whatever the next thing was. She didn't know exactly when the line moved. It moved the way lines do when you're not watching for them. Slowly, then all at once. Her friend Vanessa was the first person to say anything out loud. "You look different," Vanessa said, over lunch in late June. She was studying Serena with the frank assessment of a woman who had known her for 11 years. "Not different, bad. Just lighter. I've been sleeping better," Serena said. Vanessa looked at her. "That's not what I mean." Serena ate her salad. Vanessa waited. "There's someone," Serena said finally. Vanessa put down her fork. Tell me everything." So Serena told her. The treadmill, the dinner, the coffee, the parking garage. Vanessa listened through the whole thing with the patient attention of a very good friend. And when Serena finished, she said, "Your mother set you up with the man you'd been annoyed at for weeks." Inadvertently. "Your mother," Vanessa said, "is a genius." Things with Dylan were not without friction. They were both, as it turned out, people who had strong opinions and didn't always bother to soften them. He was methodical in a way that occasionally drove her sideways. He made decisions slowly, circling and examining before he committed. And Serena was a person who moved on information and then moved on. She made calls. He built cases. They fought, twice. Once about something real and once about something that wasn't real but was covering something real, which was the more useful argument in the end. He was direct in disagreement, she'd give him that. He didn't go sideways or passive or quiet. He said what he meant, and then listened to what she said, which was rarer than it should have been. After the second argument, he sat across from her in her kitchen at 11 o'clock at night and said, "I need to know if this is something you're in, because I'm in it, and I need to know if we're in the same place." She looked at him. The kitchen light was harsh and unflattering, and they'd both said things in the last hour that sat uneasily between them. "I'm in it," she said. He nodded, just once, like he'd been waiting for her to say it out loud. "Okay," he said. "Then we figure out the rest." They ordered takeout. They talked until 2 in the morning. She fell asleep on her couch with her legs over his and woke up at 6 with a crick in her neck and a feeling in her chest that she recognized, finally, as something she hadn't been sure she was still capable of. Her father found out in September. Serena's father, Robert, was a retired schoolteacher who lived 20 minutes south of the city and expressed opinions about everything except the things that mattered most, about which he was entirely silent until he wasn't. He met Dylan at a Sunday dinner that Cheryl had organized with her usual light touch, meaning there was no announcement, just pot roast again and an extra place setting and an air of inevitability. Robert shook Dylan's hand. He said very little through dinner. He asked 2 questions: where Dylan was from and whether he believed in maintaining things or replacing them when they broke. Dylan said he believed in maintaining things when possible. Replacement was the last resort. Robert nodded and went back to his food. Later, washing dishes, he said to Serena very quietly, "He means what he says." That was the whole review. She knew it was enough. October. The clinic was in the middle of a grant review, and Serena was working the kind of hours that made ordinary life feel distant, like something happening in another country. Dylan brought food when she was too tired to think about it. He learned which tasks she needed to talk through, and which ones she needed quiet for. He did not try to solve problems she hadn't asked him to solve, which was an underrated quality in a human being. One evening he came by with dinner and found her sitting on the kitchen floor, back against the cabinet, not doing anything, just sitting. He sat down next to her on the floor, put the food bag between them. "Rough day," he said. "Rough month," she said. "Yeah." They sat there on the floor of her kitchen and ate Thai food out of containers, and she told him about the grant and the staffing numbers and the two families at the clinic who were going to be affected if the funding fell through, and how she lay awake some nights running the numbers into her head, because the numbers had people's faces in them. He listened to all of it. Then he said, "You care about it so much, that's the thing. It makes it harder," she said. "I know," he said, "but it's the right way to do it." She leaned her head on his shoulder. He didn't say anything else. Outside the kitchen window, the city was doing what the city does in October, the fog coming in off the bay, the streetlights turning everything amber and diffuse. She thought about how strange it was that a man she'd resented for taking her parking lot view had somehow become the person she wanted next to her on the kitchen floor at 9 p.m. when everything felt heavy. She thought about that word her father had used. Means what he says. She thought about the structure and the truth. The grant came through in November. The clinic had a celebration, nothing elaborate, just coffee and pastries in the break room. The staff crowded around the small table, someone bringing in a balloon that said "Congratulations" in silver letters that kept catching the light. Serena stood in the middle of it and felt something loosen in her chest that she hadn't realized she'd been holding tight. She texted Dylan from the break room, "We got it." He wrote back 30 seconds later, "I knew you would. Dinner tonight. I'm cooking." She smiled at her phone in the middle of the break room, and her colleague Janet gave her a look that she pretended not to see. She wrote him a letter in December. She had never written anyone a letter before in her adult life. Emails, texts, the occasional card with a few lines inside. But she had things she wanted to say that felt too large for a screen and too exact for casual conversation. And she sat down with actual paper on a quiet Sunday morning and wrote them down. She wrote about the treadmill. She wrote about the parking lot and the half-inch of concrete, and how unreasonably angry she had been, and how she understood now that the anger was partly because she had built such careful walls around her routine that even a stranger with earbuds could threaten the whole structure. She wrote about the parking garage and the sandwich and what it had meant that he had come. She wrote about the kitchen floor. She wrote, "I spent a long time being very good at being alone. I want you to know that I know what I'm choosing when I choose something different. I'm choosing it on purpose." She gave it to him at dinner that night, folded, no envelope. She watched him read it. He read slowly, the way he did everything, carefully, not rushing toward the end. When he finished, he held it for a moment. Then he looked at her. "You're choosing something different," he said. "On purpose," she said. He set the letter down. He reached across the table and covered her hand with his. The fog was coming in outside. The kitchen was warm. Somewhere in the city, 12 treadmills sat in a row by a window overlooking a parking lot, and one of them, Serena thought, still had her name on it. But she was starting to think she didn't need the window quite as much as she used to. She had found something better to look at.